It's Monday, June 1st, 2015. My name is Rim.
My name is Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, we're talking about how to figure out how to trust the software that you download. Let's do this. So far, I'm on a streak of 1 for having no biking anecdotes at the beginning of the show. I'm going to keep this up.
Except, does that meta count as an infringement?
No, but meta never counts.
Oh.
Besides, what I specifically said, I think, was I won't talk about fixie guys. Anyway, the only reason for can't talk, can't say anything. No bikes.
I went to work today for the first time in a while. I didn't do any work, and there was so much Netrunner action today, news-wise, that took up most of my time. Also, went shopping during lunch and whatnot.
No, I
buy Netrunner car.
I spent most of today at work sitting in a meeting that was useless, and then we have a trip to London coming up, and like no one booked it because every time I said, "Hey guys, let's book this trip," no, let's wait. So finally, like today, book it. So I spent the day trying to book a flight to and from London like the week after next. And of course, now it's too late, so I'm dropping like $3,000 for this trip.
It's not your $3,000.
No, it's not.
So
but
who gives a fuck?
Well, I have an interest in the company such that a percentage of that $3,000 is actually my $3,000.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, so even if you did it well in months in advance, it would have been what, $2,000?
No, like $800 or $900. Like flights to London are not expensive if you book them in advance.
Well, if you're gonna spend $3,000, may as well just spend $6,000 and go first class.
First class is like $11,000. Business class I could get for about $4,000 or $5,000.
Just go for it. Full $11,000.
Nah.
Who gives a shit? You don't have to pay, and you get to sit.
No, they would know. So a coworker at one point did book just business class without asking anyone, and it was like $8,000. And there was some drama because of that, because no one's ever done that before.
Oh.
I mean, I book business class when I get it like cheaper than economy because of that Kuwait Air thing. But anyway, the problem I ran into is I use Kayak usually because they're actually like, they're not like all those sites are not great. But of all those sites, that one's actually been pretty okay. Like it's worked out for me.
I mean, all the sites work, the Pricelines, the Kayaks, the whatevers, but they all suck also.
Yeah, for various reasons. But something happened this time. They must have changed something because I searched and I was like, oh, it's like $1,000. Like these aren't so bad. So I pick a flight and I'm like, all right, cool. And I go to book it. And then, you know, it always takes you to like the actual place you're going to book from there.
Hidden fees?
No. It took me to this place called eDreams that I'd never heard of.
Uh-oh.
So, all right, like fine. I mean, I've booked on shady ass like things like that before and it's never heard.
Why does there even exist? I mean, I understand the purpose of Kayak is to like search all the different airlines together, right? To aggregate. But when you click buy, shouldn't it always take you to the official website of the airline?
Nope, because that price is usually through someone else who either bought or has a way to buy or an insurance or something.
Those places should not legally be permitted to exist.
You know how we could fix that?
Imagine if you went down to the grocery store, and there's the grocery store, and they have apples, and there's a guy in front of the grocery store, and you can't go in the grocery store and get an apple.
Oh, he comes out, he's like, oh, you want to buy an apple? I'll be right back. And he comes out with
He goes in the grocery store, he waits in line, he buys the apple, and then he sells the apple to you.
So,
it's like, fuck you,
there's
dude.
an easy way to make that happen. We would just have to have laws and then also trade agreements that said any airline must publish in a standardized format all of their prices at all times for all of their offerings, full stop, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
That would make that middle layer disappear.
How about all businesses that sell products to the public directly as opposed to B2B must publish?
Nope, then I'd be an airline and I wouldn't sell to the public. I'd only sell B2B to one of those shady people in the middle.
How does it benefit you?
I can obfuscate everything internally and still do price discrimination. I mean, there's a lot of e-shops.
Why don't you just do price discrimination and make it fucking public? Just be like, yes, I'm discriminating prices. What you can do about it?
So I watched a coworker booking flights somewhere else, and they opened this. They searched for the same flight on the same service in Chrome, Firefox, and IE, all in the equivalent of incognito, and got radically different prices. And we tested it. It was based on browser.
If you buy plane tickets, use user agents to try different OSs too.
Yeah. So you know what I figured out? If you're using Internet Explorer and you try to buy plane tickets, they just give you worse prices. I guess they think you're dumb enough to take them.
Okay.
Anyway, so then I get to this payment portal that asks for PayPal or a credit card. Warning sign number 1. Warning
I see
sign
that a
number
lot.
2.
What's wrong with that?
That's weird for booking a flight.
I wouldn't use PayPal to book a flight.
Yeah.
But, I mean, most places online let you choose your payment method.
Yeah, but it's still, so I pick credit card, and then Amex is not an option?
Amex is usually not an option.
Not
a lot
for
of
flights.
places.
Every airline takes Amex because that's what every corporate credit card for travel is.
That's true. It is weird for a travel-related business not
So,
to take Amex.
I look at it and I think, well, I could book anyway on my own credit card and then just get the reimbursement.
No,
that'd be fine, 'cause I'd
I'm
get
not
the-
giving my credit card to shady.
I'd get the
website.
cash back and I'd use Google Wallet for it,
Oh,
so
there
I'd
you
be
go.
safe.
Okay.
So that would have been fine. But then I think a second and I type eDreams into Google. And
Good
all
move.
the results are, this place fucking fucked me.
How did they fuck you? You bought a ticket and you didn't actually get a ticket.
Bought a ticket, they charged me twice, and then they disappeared and never gave me the ticket. Like crazy, egregious bullshit.
How come the government isn't arrested whoever's
That's what a lot of people are wondering. This is a recent thing. So then I go
Why
back.
don't we set up something shady like that and see how long it goes before we get busted?
Yeah. So then I go back into Kayak, and basically every result for like the first 3 pages, if you sort by cheapest, is this eDreams fake site.
Why didn't you contact Kayak and say, hey, you should remove this
I tweeted at
eDreams?
them, no response. I emailed them, no response.
What kind of money is Kayak just getting, like the commission payment?
There must be something going on like that. But, I mean, like, they have other similarly shady things there before, like all sites do, but, like, eDreams seems to be literally the
Listen,
shadiest.
I would just basically suck it up and pay the extra money to just go directly to the airline's website.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Even if I'm getting ripped off because maybe there's some reseller I can go to and get a lower price, I just go directly to the airline's website and buy the ticket because at least then I can trust it.
Yeah, I just went directly to Delta. Actually, the one nice thing that worked out is because the ticket is so expensive because it's last minute or whatever, you get extra air miles based on how much you paid for the ticket, but they're my air miles, not the company's.
I never understood why individual people always get the air miles when companies buy the ticket.
Because otherwise, if I didn't get the air miles, I would be a lot less willing to travel for work.
If I was a company, I would keep all those fucking
There's been
miles.
lawsuits about that, actually. There have been, like, companies really can't do that.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting because they're the ones paying.
Yeah.
So
Air miles are a separate thing. Now, there are corporate air miles accounts that do things. The problem is every airline thing. Let's do a Thursday show on air miles. I got a lot to say. I got a lot to say because I have air miles with like 8 different fucking air miles things. And
JetBlue only.
I have the most with Turkish Air. I have like 7,000 or 8,000
Oh, it's
there.
kind of far away.
Yeah. Anyway, so I guess it's Monday, so we got some tech news.
There's so much tech news right now.
Yep. So what we're trying here is we're basically
We're out of Monday topics.
We've run out of Monday topics that either don't require like we can do without doing some research, like topics that we don't know enough about to talk for 45 minutes on without research, or rehashing something we've already done just with like, oh, what's changed in the last 10 years since we did that show?
And the thing is, change in tech recently hasn't been as dramatic.
Processors aren't that much faster,
Right. There haven't been crazy new developments. The things that are crazy new developments like aren't available to the public yet, or there's not much to say about or whatever. And you know, there was so much to talk about because we started Geeknights, we hadn't talked about anything. And
Yeah, so we
now-
were like, let's do a show on NTP. Let's do a show on how hard drives work. There was a lot of shows. We got 10 years worth of shows out of that.
and it's like, well, hard drives still, they changed to SSDs, I guess.
I guess
but
we haven't done a show on how SSDs work.
have we?
Or like hybrids. I don't think so.
I don't know, is there a whole show's worth?
We did a show on RAID, but even RAID is kind of obsolete. Like prop algorithms are usually better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Desktop DAS versus NAS. DAS is coming back
But
in
it's
a
like
big
even
way.
all that would be one show. Okay.
Yep. But anyway, and we've done tech news roundups where we just do like 15 tech newses, and you know, it's basically This Week in Tech, but without what that show
Not
is.
being garbage.
Yeah, that show. Yeah. Anyway.
People who know more about actual technology instead of, you know, enough about technology to work with technology and not just be journalists.
Yep. But we're trying something a little different now. What we're going to do, unless one of you has a better idea, is find a tech news that actually has like an underlying topic that's worthy of discussion and do like 2 of those or one of those as the main part of the show.
Yeah, because sometimes there's the tech news that we can just go on and on about because there's something going on in it.
Yep.
That's
So
big.
we're trying that. It's like halfway between a tech news roundup and a regular Geek Nights Monday. We're gonna try this format.
There is so much tech news right now. Why don't we discuss that?
Yeah. So I got a tech news too, because Scott used to always complain when we were doing the show. It's like, Ram, that tech news you have isn't a tech news.
Well, because so much tech news out there is actually just either business news or political news that is somehow related to technology. For example, this tech company's got bought, is IPOing, is VC's investing in this, and it's like that's business news.
It's business news about a tech company.
Right. Or, there's this right now, for example, there was just a Supreme Court decision today about a guy making threats on Facebook. And you know what? That's legal news. It just happened to be that it somehow involved Facebook. That doesn't make it tech news. It's not about technology. Technology touches every part of our lives in this society that we live in the West. Therefore, you could, if you were so loosey-goosey in your definition, consider everything as tech news. Even just,
Yep.
But you can't.
So I have a legit, real tech news here, a very specific thing, and let's see how much you guys care about it.
Not at all.
So I knew about half of what's going on in this, and Scott knew the rest because he actually writes code. So MSVCRT is that thing that you download in Windows to make some programs just work.
The
That's
Microsoft
what most people think
Visual C redistributable
or
runtime. Basically
runtime RT. I think.
I don't know what it stands for exactly because
what
I
most
don't
people
write
know it
Windows
as?
applications.
They get an MSVCRT error in their computer blue screens. They don't know why.
Well, it doesn't blue screen, but basically, someone else out there has Visual Studio and they write a program in C. And they want that program to run on your computer, but you need some libraries.
Nope, that is the majority cause of blue screens in old days. That DLL blue screens.
Okay, you need some libraries, and for some reason, they don't just fucking include these things in Windows, so you need to get this MSVCRT C library thing installed so that the person's program that they wrote in C in Visual Studio will run on your Windows computer. Why don't they just include these libraries in Windows? I don't know.
Anyway. So there's a bug if you use that and you use MinGW.
So MinGW is sort of a similar kind of thing, but you're in a scenario where you have a Windows computer and you've got a program written in C for Linux-type machines, right? Or GNU machines, could be BSDs, Unixes, whatever. So, for example, you got wget, you got the source code, you want to compile it and run it on Windows. MinGW is sort of the thing that gets that done.
So it turns out if you're using MinGW, and depending on a bunch of other factors, here, I'll read the article, because they give a pretty good explanation. So let's say that you need accurate floating point numbers, more accurate than usual, and you have decided to use the long double data type for extra precision. Already, we've lost all the Python programmers and me. So you're using this long double. And then after you do a bunch of calculations, you print your number to look at it for troubleshooting, like whatever. To your shock, I love this article, instead of the number being 123.4567889, it is printed out as negative 6.518427 times 10 to the 264th, or 2.745563, depending on your specific computer.
Right. Well, it could be big endian or little endian, right?
Yep.
Well,
this is due to a bug.
It could be 2's complement, right?
In some versions of MinGW G++ 4.8.1, where that library still uses MSVCRT for some of its functions, like print.
Right. Well, usually when you are running something cross-platform, you have and something's written for library A, but the platform you're on has library B, what you'll do is you'll just make a new version of library A that is supposed to look like the original library A as far as the application is concerned, but really you replace the contents of some of its functions with wrappers around the local system libraries.
Now, that's actually something I'm very familiar with, because one of my first big IT projects when I worked at IBM and was just working at places for real was using Wine and tools like it to make crufty old Windows applications run in Linux to make thin terminals.
Right. So, for example, I write a program on Linux, and I import this library, the printing, the standard input output library, and then I go standard input output library dot print. Okay, great. And then on the Linux machine, obviously, that library exists, and it contains the code to execute when someone wants to print something. So now I want to take that code that I wrote and run it on Windows, but Windows doesn't have that library. So we need to install a library that looks like that standard input-output library that was on the Linux machine. But obviously, if we just take the code from the original library and bring it over to Windows, it's not going to work because printing works differently. So we'll take that original library and we'll change it around so that the inside of the print function actually says, oh, yeah, go find the Windows print function and use that.
Yep. So
now my original code is untouched. You can compile it against this phony library. And then the phony library, when my program calls the code in that library, will then call the code in the Windows library, which will then actually print things.
So MSVCRT's runtime reserves 80 bits for double and long double.
80 bits? Wouldn't it just be 128 bits?
It's 80 bits. MinGW, when it uses MSVCRT,
it's a 64-bit thing, right?
To print this out, interprets it using the first 64 bits.
On a 64-bit...
This discrepancy causes, quote, garbage results to be output.
Isn't a 64-bit machine and regular old integers supposed to be 64 bits?
Microsoft C++ runtime library reserves 80 bits for double and long double.
Shouldn't a long double be even more than a double?
Fuck if I know. I write Java and Python. I don't write...
Or, on 64-bit machines, are the C compilers still considering a regular int to be 32-bit just to be nice? And then doubles become 64, but then wouldn't a long double be 128?
Maybe a long double is 80 for some... I honestly don't know.
Okay.
So, that is some tech news. Now, one, that is also the difference between someone with a classical computer science degree versus, software engineering or IT. CS people learn that kind of stuff.
Also,
way more than
nobody in the world gives a fuck about this because who the hell is compiling? Who's doing this? Only the weirdest people.
The same people who use Cygwin legitimately on their Windows box.
Cygwin is on top of MinGW, right?
Yes. So the people who run Cygwin and then run applications in Cygwin as their primary desktop.
Yeah,
they're having
trouble. They're having trouble right now with some of their fancier programs.
Yeah,
that need high precision floating point numbers.
So. This actually, fuck. One of my developers actually might have... You know what? This is going to sound crazy. This might explain an issue.
I thought all your shit is Java.
No. There's some C++ stuff that has JNI connections.
Are you using MinGW?
One of the development environments probably is. I'll bet there's a unit test that I suspect...
It only matters if you're compiling against those libraries.
I'm going to go look at what this
someone
workflow
who's
is.
just, Yeah.
Well, already is... abandon all hope, ye who use JNI.
And you're using long doubles.
Scott, abandon all hope, ye who use JNI.
Okay, I don't even know what JNI is.
That's how you basically have a C++ program interfacing directly with Java.
Wouldn't you just use some... if I had... I don't like it when... What? Wouldn't you just use some sort of data interchange, like a database or a file or...
JNI is the Java native interface.
A web service.
It designs a way for managed code written in Java to interact with native code written in C++ or C.
Or a named pipe, or, just... Why do you need the programs to, directly call each other?
It's
not necessary.
Here are the two answers I have for you. One, old people, or two, vague discussion about performance.
Is this so that a Java program can call a function in a C library?
Basically.
Or a C program can call a function that's written in Java?
So Java code running inside of a JVM can call and be called by native applications written running on the OS.
Both ways.
Yes.
You should just use something to go between, like a database or a message queue or anything.
So actually, there's a decent performance case for doing it this way, involving the libraries that already exist to do network capture are pretty much all written in C++.
All right, well then you shouldn't be writing in Java. You should be writing the parts that don't need to be C for performance reasons and ease of writing reasons in Python, which can natively directly call C.
Yeah, well,
you don't need to have this weird JVM and JNI getting in the way.
I'm tired of and don't like Java. I'll put it that way.
You don't say.
Yeah, I'm getting increasingly tired of Java. But the main point of me making this my news is, one, that is an example of actual tech news. And two, if you want to go into computer science, like you're in high school, like a lot of our listeners, Computer science, you'll learn what that is.
Even though technically that isn't even really, I mean, it's programming, but computer science is actually like language parsing and all kinds of other crazy.
But like, if you have a computer science degree, you'll understand this story much more readily than a lot of people I know who would have software engineering or IT or other computer degrees.
Okay.
So anyway, you got any news? You forgot, don't you? You forgot what your news was. You didn't link it to me yet either.
No,
the last thing you sent me is that hipster dice thing.
There's so much tech news going down right now that it's hard to even keep it all under control.
You didn't? Oh, G+.
Oh,
Photos.
yeah.
That's your tech news.
That's right, the Google thing. There was so much Google announcements.
Name any rabbit from the book club book. Any rabbit.
Hazel is the main one.
All right, one more.
Bigwig is the second main one.
All right, good enough.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Might as well just take the easy path. Why should I go for the hard ones?
Yeah.
Silver. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a hard one. All right, so Google had mad announcements. Their Google I/Os and whatnot. They announced some Android M, which I didn't even read about it yet. I just saw headlines. I don't even know what it is.
There's good stuff in there, but
I can't talk about it because I didn't even know.
I'm going to do a dedicated news about it, but I didn't want to do it today because that is newer than the stuff that I wanted to bring up today.
Yeah. What I do know about is Google Photos, right? So Google Photos solves a few photo-related problems, right? The problem a lot of people have is taking a lot of freaking photos these days with your phone cameras.
Yep.
And, we've had for a while, even the Google Plus app would automatically look in your phone's photo library, take all those photos and put them up on Google Plus, where they would be safe.
But then it was like hard to make a library to share them. There were limits.
There's all kinds of weird stuff, right?
Not every phone would like auto-upload stuff.
So now the new Google Photos smartly organizes these photos based on things. So it's like, I see that you went on a trip to, based on the IP, the geolocation, and all these photos are taken in this other place where you don't live during this week. Let's group those all together in trip to place.
Now, it's been doing that for a while, and I love that.
Yep. So it's doing that for you. But mostly the thing is they're giving everyone free, unlimited photo storage with photos up to a certain size, in megapixels or megabits or whatever. So as long as the photos your phone takes are lower resolution and lower file size and JPEG than this limit, it will automatically now, in the new Google Photos app, which is separate from G+, G+ is slowly being phased out, store those for you forever. You used to have to pay if you hit a certain storage limit. You still can pay, in which case they'll let you have images of any size, full resolution, whatever, and store as many as you're paid to store. The thing is people are acting like, oh, Google, you have saved us, on our photo storage woes.
Flickr has been,
Okay, so first of all, Flickr, for as long as I've been using it, which is since college, is like $25 a year, and it still is.
For unlimited everything.
Full resolution everything. So Flickr's already the king. Now,
but Flickr was way behind for a while on like an app on your phone that worked, integration with other systems.
Yeah, now they've got that under control pretty much.
They do now.
It's pretty much that, and Google Photos are pretty much the same in this regard.
Yeah.
Amazon also has Amazon Photos. Guess what? That does also the same goddamn thing for a small annual fee.
Yep.
Unlimited storage, full resolution, whatever.
I think what's interesting is that
also Apple has iCloud, which I think is a little bit more expensive, but also does the same exact thing.
So I polled a bunch of people who aren't like as tuned into this as we are, just kind of at work and around. And the general sentiment is everyone likes, like they know what Flickr is, but they're, quote, I'm not a photographer, so I don't use it. They love G+ because suddenly it just worked because they take pictures and it's all already set up. And the people who use iPhones hate iPhoto. Absolutely hate iPhoto.
Well, iPhoto's no good.
Yeah.
But if you're just using the built-in camera app, right, the iCloud photo store thing, I don't use iPhoto, but for example, you could Apple, the annoying Apple software updater that's always on your Windows computer trying to get you to upgrade iTunes all the time. It always wants you to install this iCloud garbage. And I just say do it to make it shut up, and it doesn't bother me. But I actually use one function of it, which is take a photo on your iPhone, and it's automatically in iCloud, just automatically no matter what. Then you can go to the Windows computer, and there's a folder there. This is iCloud Photos. You click on it, and there's all the photos that are on your phone.
Yeah.
You don't need to like do a transfer or anything like that. It's just there they are. If I was going to use, Flickr, Google Plus, or Amazon, I would have to go to Flickr's website or go to the Google Plus, which isn't that much harder. But then I have to download the photo onto the computer, which I guess is still happening when you go to the iCloud photo, right?
Yeah.
But, it's right there in the Windows Explorer. I can drag it right from there into the Photoshop. As it saves me a whole step.
I mean, if I had to say anything about this G Plus thing, it's a victory.
Well, it's not G Plus anymore.
Well,
that's the news
right,
of it.
You're right.
Right? In fact, you know how when you search on Google, if you search for a person, often you'll see like their Google Plus profiles like above the results. They're starting to remove that. It's getting phased out.
Yeah.
Google Plus is disappearing.
Even though I've started using it more and more lately.
A lot. There are, it's weird because it's
like
sort
the
of...
indie RPG communities, like all in there.
There are a lot of communities that are on there and using Google Plus, so if they really just hose it, it's not like when they hosed Google Wave and not a tear was shed.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But we'll see. I want to talk about this separately because photography workflows, if you have multiple devices that take photos, like it's a complicated mess of what's backed up where and when and all that kind of stuff. And like, what's your record? Like, how do you share the photos? And I feel like for all the casual photos that I take, basically everything I take on my phone, G Plus, I keep saying G Plus, the new Google Photos thing has a pretty compelling UX compared to all the other ways.
Yeah, I just use a whole bunch of them all at once.
Yep.
Because
the problem with that was when it wasn't unlimited, you're filling up your Google Drive space.
If any one of them dies or has a problem or whatever, it's like I don't care. I mostly just, I use Flickr and I use Lightroom. I don't use any of the other things.
Yep.
I just, like the Amazon, it's just like I just let it be.
Yep.
And if I ever need it, it's there.
But here's the difference. Letting Google just be before was filling up your Google Drive.
That's true.
Now,
it's not.
You literally just let it be. So the great thing is now, independent of the workflow.
If you got an Android phone, I mean, this is way bigger news for you than if
you
got an iPhone.
If I have my Android phone now, it's great because every photo I take is immediately uploaded as fast as possible to both Flickr and Google.
This is mostly big news for the people with Android phones.
So when the
iPhones.
cops smash my phone, there are 2 copies of that photo on 2 different services.
Yep.
That's what's important.
It's very important.
Things of the day. I was a big fan of Seinfeld, as was Scott when we were younger. Doesn't hold up that well.
The laugh track really is the thing that makes it not hold up.
The laugh track is like a punch in the dick.
If they got rid of the laugh track, it would probably have some sort of weird emptiness to it that would also be problematic, and like all the pauses for the laugh track. But other than that, it's actually good if it not for the laugh track.
Yep. So what I've been like when I show people like Emily who have never really seen Seinfeld, instead of like saying, "Oh, let's watch a random episode," I've kind of decided to curate it because there are like 10 or 15 memorable episodes.
Yeah, there are episodes like the high concept episodes,
like the parking garage,
the
Chinese restaurant,
the Frogger.
Yep, like the holes.
Yep, the
Yeah, there's some episodes.
Right there, it's basically
the Maestro, like that whole arc.
Yeah.
So,
but there's a lot of episodes that are just like, all right, it's another Seinfeld episode.
So I saw this. Well, also, it's just like it's interesting because the show was really funny to me as a kid, having never lived in or even been to New York. Now that I live in New York, the show has a whole nother level of, wow, that's actually way too real.
It was actually very surprising when the show was new how like globally, universally popular it was when it was so New York.
Because it is like so
New
York.
That would be like if people who didn't play video games are laughing at penny arcades.
Yeah. Of course, nowadays, penny arcade actually probably is funny to a lot of people who don't play a lot of video games.
I mean, some of it, but you still get, it's crazy.
Yeah. So this is a little mini article someone put together about the fourth wall in the set, meaning that in the whole run of the show, Jerry had an apartment and then they changed it once a little bit. Like they got rid of that bike and stuff hanging in the background.
Yeah.
Like they moved that background bedroom area because it used to show a bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically someone showed that there's a wall that you never saw in the entire show.
To the right of the kitchen.
Yep.
Because they never look to the right of the kitchen. The camera only goes to the people in the kitchen.
Yep.
It never goes to the area
they never
in front of the kitchen. Or, I mean, you sort of always feel in the show like there's not a lot of room there, and it goes pretty much to the windows of the facing out or the wall or whatever's over there.
Someone found a picture of the wall and what's on the wall that you never got to see. And then they also put together a series of clips following a Kramer that actually show literally the full extent of the apartment that you ever see.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a neat little article. It's one of those, think about this kind of information that is lost to the ages because there's literally, who would think to save, what was the full design of the set? We live in an era where this sort of thing will stop happening because, I suspect that within 20 or 30 years, every set, every TV show ever that has a set is going to be 3D scanned for posterity and put in a museum.
Right, but it's like we don't know, say, on the set of Ed Sullivan Show, right? It's like
what was behind the desk?
Is there a spot that we couldn't see? Does anyone remember what was there? Right?
Is there any photo of
Dick Van Dyke Show? Does everyone know? Everyone who worked on? I mean, the credits. It's what was lost. I mean, a lot of these old things, episodes have been lost.
Yep. Imagine if you had a shot from every talking show ever, every show where a guy sat by a desk and talked at you, what it looked like to him. From his perspective, just
a lot of old live television things are just lost forever, right? I think the first Super Bowl there's no film, or there's only one shitty film.
In the old days, the cameras they used went direct to a broadcast machine. There was no recording.
They weren't going to put actual film in there, and just to record this thing, unless it was a major important thing, because it cost a lot of money and it was a pain in the ass to develop. And
recording technology from not digital, modern cameras came after broadcasting technology.
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot TV shows just live. Stand in front of the TV, in front of the camera, do the show, and that's it.
And as a bonus, the article I just noticed at the end also has an interview with the Seinfeld production designer, specifically on the parking garage episode.
Okay.
So there's just a lot of good stuff going on here.
So, one of the bestest game developers out there, Zachtronics. He is the maker of many, I guess is more than one person now, but it's mostly Zach. At least he's the name behind it, right? It's his deal. Makers of such games as Space Chem and Infinifactory and, the programming games. They got a new game. It's early access on Steam. You can get it right now. I'm probably going to get it when I get home.
I'm not.
It is TIS-100, Tessellated Intelligence System. What do you do in this game? You program in assembly language this fictional computer. And at the same time that you are learning to program assembly language or using your existing assembly language programming skills, you are discovering the secrets of this computer, much like Uplink. So it's sort of like Space Chem plus Uplink plus you're just straight up programming assembly, not like a metaphor for programming like Space Chem with chemical arrangement.
You get the impression there's going to be a cool, probably sinister plot as you figure out what this computer was doing or what it was supposed to be doing.
I'm sure there is.
Should you even be fixing it?
I haven't programmed assembly things in any assembly language since college, and when I did, somehow I got an A, even though I didn't consciously fully understand everything I was doing. I just sort of had this natural, inborn talent, there was an evil spirit inside of me that is really good at programming in assembly language, but it is not in my brain. It is somewhere else, perhaps in my hands.
Print and explore.
Like I made a deal with the devil to play banjo, even though I couldn't tell you how to play banjo.
Ooh, the game comes with a manual. That's one of those old-style reference manuals to a computer.
You need that for programming any assembly language, because it's different from chip to chip.
The first computer I bought, my 486 SX2, it came with 5 multi-100-page books describing everything down to the voltages on pins and things that came out of the back.
Mine had that as well. I also bought a copy of Borland Turbo C++ something for Windows because it was $90 instead of the full one, which is hundreds of dollars. It came with 11 floppies that I think I still have. And that came with giant books. I think I still have them, like a full definition of all the I don't think it was a C language definition. You had to buy the C book for that, but it had all the documentation because it was been a lot of data to download this kind of documentation, and you only had so many megabytes in your hard drive and only so many floppy disks, right?
Yeah.
And the internet didn't necessarily exist in those days. I don't think there was a network library in there. It was mostly documentation on the Windows, the OWL, the Object Windows library, which is how you made Windows pop up and control their X buttons and all those sorts of menus and that sort of stuff.
So, in the meta moment, the next convention we're going to be at is Kineticon. We will be doing a bunch of panels at it, along with, running the whole panels department. As we always say, It is a great convention. If you live within a day's drive of Hartford, Connecticut, it is well worth your time and money to go to Connecticon.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to fly to it, I would not necessarily recommend it unless you have money and time to burn.
In other news, Saturday, June 6th, so 5 days from now, is the Netrunner Regional Championship in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Fuck
Are you
that.
going?
I'm going to the beach.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
However, I have obligated somehow to go to the Philadelphia Netrunner Regionals
Somehow.
on the 20th, and we're gonna live stream from there.
Ooh.
And maybe I can convince Rim to come and help me live stream from there
20th? That might actually work out.
because I could use some help with the technologies.
Well,
and
then I can bring my camera too, so we'll have two super
that's
high
what I'm saying. We're
quality
gonna bring the
cameras.
live wedge. We're gonna put on a whole thing there. So
we'll
because
talk.
this is also the regional championship in Philadelphia, where the world champion happens to be from. So it's a big deal. People are gonna be interested.
We could make some magic happen, actually, if we go together.
Anyway.
Well, the cool thing's coming in. Watch our videos on YouTube and share them. The more they get watched, the more likely it is we do shit. We are seriously considering going to PAX Australia for a third year in a row due to popular demand.
Send money.
If you want us to go, either watch out for an upcoming Patreon or email us and ask us how to send us money.
Just give me money.
Or ask PAX, like, hey.
And you might be like, wait, I have a lot less money than you. Why would I send you money? And that is possibly true.
That is true.
Especially if you're just like some pump kid. You definitely do not have as much money as someone who lives in New York City and has money. So it might seem like a jerk to ask you for money.
But if 1,000 punk kids give us $5, we can come to PAX Australia
Right.
literally every
While
year.
I have money, I don't have enough money. You know, I'm not 1%. I cannot afford to go to Australia year after year.
Yeah, Sky-
and especially since I've already been there once, I sort of feel like if I have enough money to go on a vacation, I should go somewhere else that I haven't already been. So if I'm going to go to Australia again, I will need monies from another source. So it's really about you wanting me to go to Australia and not about me wanting to go there.
Yep, me
So,
going to Australia the
like-
2 times that I've gone cost more than a year's rent in places I've lived.
Right, so don't think of it as I want to go to Australia on a trip and I'm getting you to pay for it, because that is not true. I don't actually want to go there again that badly. I mean, I wouldn't mind going, I'm not going to lie. But it's you want me to go there badly enough that you will pay money for it.
The rewards we're looking at for like the tiers and stuff for like people who actually make this happen are like, one, we'll obviously do meetups like in the places we go in Australia.
Yeah, I
and do a big
mean,
party.
if someone else is paying for me to go somewhere, I'm going to be at their whim and not my own whim. Except, fuck you, I'm going to the Coral Reef, but I'll do that on my own dime.
We'll probably do a video interview show where Churba, one of our favorite and most famous and friendly and just generally debonair listener friend fans, will interview us, and there will be no bounds to what he asks us about. So that could be interesting.
Great.
We'll video that in Australia.
Sure.
And we'll do 2 panels at that PAX.
When
too.
did I agree to this?
I'm just saying that would be cool.
Yeah, they told us that if we can get to the PAX in Australia, that they'll give us 2 panels, so we don't have to worry about not being approved or anything. But we
Yes.
need... what do you want us to talk about for those panels? I mean, we don't just want to do the same panels we always do over again.
Well, we're going to do the same 2 panels that we submitted to PAX Prime.
Are those new?
Yes.
Oh, good.
The one about the rules thing and the one about the moving your body thing.
All right.
Those two.
We'll see if those happen.
Yeah. So, other thing, one last announcement. We are back on iTunes. So,
Yay, with shitty album art. Yay.
all I'll say is it's better than the old album art.
Sure.
If you have an iTunes account, even though you don't use iTunes anymore because iTunes is terrible, just go subscribe or at least review us, because the top reviews are from like 2006.
It doesn't matter. I mean, only do it if you want to shamelessly promote us.
But
I mean,
at the same
I'm
time,
not even doing it.
Way worse media than us shamelessly self-promotes through its fans way more than us, and it
Well,
seems
because
to work.
I have pride, I'm not going to do low-class shit like that.
But if other people do low-class shit like that on our behalf, we don't feel bad.
But it's low-class to even ask them to do low-class shit, which is why I'm not asking. Rim is asking. Because
Yes.
he's low-class.
There's a nice layer of segregation there. No. It's quite lowbrow.
It is very.
Oh, yeah, and the book club book is Scott's pick.
Robert Jordan's first book of Wheel of Time.
A listener already messaged us saying, please don't make it the book.
but a lot of other people said, actually, I love these books.
I have to go see if anyone who said Wheel of Time is good also said Ready Player One is good. Because Ready Player One
I can
is
tell you,
garbage.
I have read
Garbage.
I agree. I have read a few chapters now of this Wheel of Time, and so far it is fantasy novel.
All right. Is it on the level of an R.A. Salvatore? Or
No,
perhaps...
it's way better than that.
It's no Prince of Nothing, though, I'm assuming.
Not yet.
All right.
Nothing Prince of Nothing in the first chapter is already Prince of Nothing, right?
Yeah, I know. The first chapter has...
So far, I'll tell you what. So basically, this is sort of a similar typical structure, right? First thing in the book, maps, good sign, right?
Actually, yeah, that's kind of a good sign.
Right? Then there's a prologue about the great characters, right? Like the great king and the big evil dude, right?
This.
Yeah, right? And then it goes to the village with the normal characters. And then, some powerful characters who are super fantasy show up. And of course, it's the dark times are coming. And that's so far all I've read.
All right.
So, Gennaro fantasy story. This, normal village folk are going to get involved in the big plot because there's dark times all over the world, not just in their village. And they've only found out now because only now have people from the other parts of the world come to visit them. They thought it was just dark times in their area. It turns out dark times everywhere. Evil. Gotta fight it.
I guess what worries me is that there are three distinct classes and equal parts of people who have said things about this book after we picked it. The first third are people saying, I love the book. The second third are people saying that book is garbage. And the third third are people putting a lot of effort into defending the book.
That people put a lot of effort into defending anything when we assaulted, which we did, without knowing, even reading one page.
I mean, I was like pruning my shit in YouTube, and there are some butthurt comments on that really brief video we put up about the King Killer Chronicle of people saying, guys, it's way better than you're making it out to be.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, Rothfuss.
So I guess we should do the actual show.
Right. So there's an issue going down with SourceForge. People don't know, before there was GitHub, there was...
In the days of Isildur.
Well, what was the other site that died and we did a news when it died?
Oh, God.
Fresh Meat.
Yes. Wow, I just had a flashback to an earlier era.
Right. Well, and there was download.com in the way olden days. I mean, I guess that technically still exists.
Download.com exists today in the same way
Two cows.
In the same way that Russia is a successor to the Soviet Union is a successor to the Tsar.
In the days before Steam, there were all these gaming file sites, too.
Oh,
right?
like GameSpy.
Right, yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
But there's SourceForge, and SourceForge is basically, I have an open source project. We are going to use CVS, because that was what was there back then.
We're too old to use GitHub.
Eventually, SVN came around, but there was CVS and then SVN. And I want to work on this open source project with people somewhere else on Earth. And we need to have a publicly hosted code repository so that anyone who wants to can check out the code and submit commits. And also so that when we build binaries or zips or distributable files for this project, they are also hosted and downloadable. So there's a site called SourceForge that offered that service.
It was one of the cores of the open source developer community.
Right. I mean, Linux hosted their stuff, and they still do it, kernel.org, whatever. But, Slashdot eventually bought the SourceForge company. They're part of the same company.
They're both owned by, like, DICE or someone now.
Whatever company it is these days. I don't know. But it was the place you would go for if there was, like, an open source project, usually if you're on a Windows computer. Because if you're on a Linux computer, you're just apt-get or yum or whatever it was.
Yep.
Or, whatever, I don't know, Emerge.
But like, the GIMP. The GIMP is the example we're using now.
If you Pac-Man on Arch, right?
If you needed a program like the GIMP,
on Ubuntu, you go apt-get install GIMP. But on Windows, you have to download gimp.setup.exe. And what you would get that from would probably be SourceForge.
Because in the old days, if someone asked me, 10 years ago, if someone said, hey, Rim, where do I download name of open source thing? I'd say, just go to SourceForge. Don't trust it from anywhere else.
Right, because that's the source, right? That's the hosting there is associated with the source code that it was made from. So that's a good place to download the file because that's directly from the people who made it. It's not like some third party took that, perhaps modified it, and then delivered it to you on some other shady file website like download.com, where it's just like, go to download.com, search for something, you find it, oh, it's not the original program, which may have already been evil to begin with. It's a modified setup exe that really just has some evil thing and then unbundles the original setup.exe afterwards. Screw that.
Now, this was not as big of a problem back then as it is now. Like, there weren't as many just like, this is malware.exes masquerading as legit software. Like, it happened, but not as often as you would think compared to today.
Right.
So, fast forward to the future, and if you go to one of those like CNET-y, downloady.com type websites,
you're already fucked.
It's all just malware and garbage.
Yeah.
But most people still think of SourceForge as, oh yeah, go to SourceForge. Turns out that is not the case, and that is the scandal that is coming out now.
Well, because GitHub has destroyed SourceForge, basically. The thing is, GitHub doesn't do as good a job at offering the already compiled distributable files, but they sort of do. But, in terms of host your source code in a place so that everyone can work on it together, GitHub destroys everyone else. They just blow them out of the water. So SourceForge is really seeing a lot of people leaving, and they're not making money anymore. So they've resorted to evilness to sort of keep their shit going.
So what they did is they basically took the GIMP, the Windows binary, made a mirror, and compromised it with adware bullshit.
Mm-hmm. So if you download the Windows GIMP, right, from SourceForge, the place that it was used to be officially hosted, it was sort of, you're going to get a modified setup that has evil malwares on it.
Here's their SourceForge's statement on this. Quote, in cases where a project is no longer actively being maintained,
but it's being maintained, it's the GIMP.
SourceForge has in some cases established a mirror of releases that are hosted elsewhere. This was done for GimpWin. End quote. Now, I point out, yeah, it was a mirror, an ad-enabled installer.
Mm-hmm.
So don't go to SourceForge anymore. And you can read this story to learn about all the details of this. Yeah, the GIMP team was like, no, that's bullshit. What the fuck?
Yeah, you know what else sucks? Just yesterday, I had to go and get a program that I wanted, and SourceForge wasn't just, it was the only place to get it. And it's a very good program. And luckily, I checked, and that installer was not modified. Now, I have the installer. I never need to go to SourceForge again.
Yep. So the problem is, the succinct topic for the remainder of this show, now in 2015, how do you determine like where the actual version of software is? And you'd think, oh, just go to the maintainer website, like the actual website. A lot of projects don't have a maintainer's website.
So this is a long time existing problem that, mostly Linux and open source people have had to deal with, right? Because when it comes to something like, a big company like Adobe or Microsoft or whatever, there's like this official place to get the programs from. You need to download software, install it on your computer. How do you know that what you think you're downloading is what you're downloading?
Yeah, creativecloud.exe from Adobe creativecloud.tv.
Right. It's like you install Steam from valve.com. You're got to be 99% sure that's just Steam, right? And then you, inside of Steam, click, say, install that game. You're pretty sure that's totally legit.
Well, because Steam
you're on your iPhone, you go to the App Store, you click install on an app. It's coming from the official Apple App Store. They're sort of taking care of you, right? You know that it's
now
legit.
At the same time, that is problematic, as we've talked about many times, because the App Store model of controlled, vetted, walled garden is a controlled, vetted, walled garden.
Obviously, it has problems, but it doesn't have the problem of what you think you're downloading is not actually what you're downloading.
Now, this gets extra complicated, and the best example of what I'm about to describe to you in the world is PuTTY.
Right.
PuTTY is the SSH SCP client for Windows, period. If you want to SSH into something, PuTTY is it.
I mean, there are many forks of PuTTY, like Kitty and others, and there's also similar PuTTY clone-ish programs like MobXterm is out there, but that costs money, sort of, and
So, if you want to download PuTTY, and you go to most places that have the putty.exe, you're fucked. Yep. That is malware.
Yep.
In fact, there's a specific malware that's targeting the financial sector right now with PuTTY that I've been warning people about.
Yep.
But the only way to know, if you go to the legitimate site, the actual maintainer and creator's website, and you're not an ultra nerd who just knows, you would not trust this site for shit.
It's just all text.
The
like
URL to download PuTTY is www.chiark.greenend.org.
Are you sure that's right?
.uk
How can that possibly be right?
Tilde SG Tatham.
I thought it was like putty.org or something.
No, putty.org also redirects here.
Is it?
Yes, if you go to putty.org, I'm doing it right now in front of Scott. So download Putty. You can download Putty here. chiark.greenend.org.uk.
Wow. All right, now does this
/tilde username Putty download.html.
So how do you know, right? So maybe someone else bought the domain putty.org or bought this domain and pointed it at some other server and is serving up shady putty.exe.
And did some like Google juice to make it show up.
Or maybe someone
top.
hacked into the Putty server and changed some of the files around, right? So that you go download putty.exe, you're getting the wrong one. How do you know? Well, first of all, SSL is supposed to protect you in some fashion because that way...
this site is not SSL secured.
That's a problem, isn't it? Because you should need the SSL because that way you know that when you look at your location bar and it says putty.org and you see the SSL, that means, aha, this actually is putty.org. It didn't get redirected to some other computer. This is the legit putty.org.
Or it is putty.org.
Yeah, you don't need the encryption part of it. You need the signing part of it. As in, there was a digital signature. The person who owns that certificate, which was verified and whatever, that human being signed it.
But even
and it's
then,
confirmed that this site is the site that you want to go to. It's their site.
Even
it's
then,
not some shady
you
other
have
site.
to trust the certificate authority and any delegations in the entire chain leading down to that certificate. And there have been numerous cases of dodgy Chinese certificates being made with dodgy chains of trust that don't immediately get caught.
That is true. So, how do you know that when you download putty.exe, that is a legit putty.exe?
Well, there's a checksum on the website, MD5, so if I download it from this website will let me confirm that what I downloaded is from this website.
Right, so you MD5 sum the exe that you downloaded, and a number comes out. You look at the number on the website, and they match. It's like, aha.
But it's the same
That
website.
tells you that the person who made the website and wrote that number there is, in fact, the same person who is telling you that this exe file is trustworthy. So
here's a signed letter from myself telling
if you can
that
trust
I'm legit.
the website is legitimate, then you can also trust that the file is legitimate.
So we could use the MD5 in another way. So say I already have Putty running, and Scott needs to download it. So he downloads it.
If we assume that Rim's Putty is good, it's not evil, he can MD5 sum his Putty, and I can MD5 sum mine, and if we get the same number, we know we have identical files, and if I can trust his, I can trust mine.
Yep, of course. If there are new versions, the hash changes.
Obviously.
If there are different builds, the hash changes. Even different platforms, the hash will likely change. The other factor is that a lot of these kinds of projects have a series of tools, but if you want, say, the GUI thing, or the Windows build or install or whatever, they link to you to let a third website. The Windows builds of a lot of old open source things are on even dodgier looking websites.
Well, the fundamental problem here is that these software packages are being distributed as binaries. On Linux machines and other open source platforms, you can distribute things as source if you want. And if you're distributing programs as source, you can trust them because you can read the source code and compile it yourself.
And if you don't want to do that, if you apt-get install or whatever, Linux you're using, like RPM, Yum, whatever, pirate, then you at least are trusting that the repository maintainer has gotten legitimate builds.
Right. So, for example, you have Ubuntu. You're using Ubuntu. So you apt-get install something. What actually happens there, right? This is what actually happens. By default, in the apt configuration file are URLs of repositories that you are trusting. And by default, the only ones in there are the official ones run by Canonical, the Ubuntu company. And you have secure SSL certificates, right? So that when you are connecting to those machines to get your package list and your package updates and your software, you are verifying cryptographically that computer is the computer that you trusted before. It hasn't changed, it hasn't moved, it's not some other masquerade, it's legit the same original. So the people who are modifying what's on that computer are the people you trusted in the first place.
Yep. So the moral, you got to trust someone.
Yep. And you can, if you want to, you can do add apt repository add, right, to add more repositories to get software from somewhere else, but you're manually saying, add this certificate as a trusted certificate, any software that they provide, I will trust. And then it will do the same verification. And in addition to that, it gets the MD5 sums from those trusted places. And even after it downloads files from the trusted places, it compares those checksums to the files to make sure that those are the ones that have been trusted.
So here's a deeper problem. From first principles, how do you decide who to trust first?
I guess if you're trusting someone with the OS, right? It's like, well...
All right, so which Linux? Who maintains that particular flavor of Linux?
Right.
You got to trust Linus, and you got to trust the people who make that Linux.
Or you can read the source code.
You going to do that?
No.
I mean, I guess first principles wise, the only
You buy a car. How do you trust that car is not going to explode?
But there is not a modern history of people selling malware cars.
Well, I mean,
like a
there is
pop-up
history of
dealership
exploding.
doesn't appear in town selling a whole bunch of fake cars like Donald Duck that suddenly collapse on him.
There
'cause
is
they're
a
made out
history of
cardboard.
exploding cars, though. You know.
Actually, I read interestingly that the car you're thinking of was no more likely to explode in that kind of accident or kill its occupants than other similar cars.
I was thinking about when the mafia rigs your car to explode on purpose.
That's a separate thing. That didn't happen as often as, yeah. But I think the real answer right now, because we could come up with some clever idea of like a repository of hashes with its own SSL that people agree to trust, like techies all know. That is like, if you want to check if your build is legit, they maintain an archive of legit hashes.
I mean, it's like, you can go and get your OS X DVD or USB stick from the Apple Store, which you can trust, and then put it in and only install things from the App Store, right? And then you have this chain of trust. Like, well, I trusted the Apple Store physically. They gave me this stick physically. I trust that. And then I only get apps through the Apple App Store that's official. I can trust that too.
Yep, stay in a walled garden.
You won't accidentally install some app from some website that that isn't what you think it is. Oh, I'm installing VLC. Ha ha ha.
No,
I'm an evil person who modified VLC and tricked you into downloading my modified VLC with evil spyware in it.
Now, bear in mind, we're not talking about downloading apps that are bad on purpose. We're talking about apps that you think are one app but are actually another app.
Right. And usually this only happens if you go to places that are obviously not official.
Download.com, CNET,
or
SourceForge.
You go to like Pirate Bay because you don't want to pay for Photoshop.
Yeah.
You're pretty much, if you do that kind of shit, you're almost guaranteed to get hosed.
Almost in the modern era, you are guaranteed. Years ago, as an experiment, I set up a Windows VM. I went and downloaded a bunch of Adobe software, and one by one, I tried installing them. And then I watched and cataloged the ridiculous amount of data that started flying out of my computer to IP addresses all over the world. It was amazing.
Yep.
So,
but it's like, technically speaking, on a pure mathematical cryptographic trust basis, you can't even really trust putty.org to be it's legit for itself.
Scott, nor can you trust reading the source code. Remember that story we did years ago about people who showed that you could compromise compilers to then compromise software compilation? So you also have to know the compiler. And so basically, here's the real answer. I came up with it during the show.
To be realistic, just make sure you're at the official websites of things, downloading the most official versions of things. Don't install shit you don't need. Only install, and it's not just, make sure you get your programs, from the right place. It's don't use shitty programs, right? Like VLC is a pretty trustworthy video player. Don't go and get like X something player that no one ever fucking heard of that looks shady as hell.
That's why your laptop crashes at your panels.
Right. Use something that's popular. It's like, yeah, you can use Chrome, you can use Firefox. Don't go using like, Chameleon weirdo browser. I don't know. I think Chameleon is a browser. I'm just like, weirdo browser made by someone else that's not a no name.
Well, also, in terms of like Windows builds of open software, I think I can list every piece of software you should ever download. Unless you have a crazy...
I mean, really, the only things you need
at most, like GIMP if you're doing photos.
You can use
Putty,
Paint.net if you want instead.
Putty, WinSCP, like a browser, OBS. Already, I can't think... VLC, a BitTorrent client, but even then, most of those are bullshit.
Yep.
Do not download the actual BitTorrent client, and also do not download MicroTorrent. They're both bad now.
Steam.
Yep.
Spotify.
But Steam's not open. It's just binary.
Adobe apps.
But those are paid.
Right.
Anyway.
It's like, you don't need... on a modern computer, there's so few things you actually need to install. 99% of everything you do is in your web browser anyway. And then, you just need to go by SSL for trustworthiness there.
From a first principles standpoint, if you can't figure out if it's legit or not, there's only one way to know. Ask someone like us. Like, really, ask someone who's an actual tech person who is old enough to know people who are a lot younger tend to be over trusting, and people who are a lot older, they're running Cygwin on their Windows desktop for day-to-day operations. So
VirtualBox you can install.
Find someone between the ages of like 19 and 40-ish and ask them where to get the name of the software, because they'll either tell you chiark.greenend.org.uk/Shagatham,
or don't use that software at all. Use this other software.
and you're going to get a curmudgeon-y tirade like you just got if you're downloading something dumb, but you won't download malware. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.
For flights, every airline takes Amex because that's what every corporate credit card for travel is.
That's true. It is weird for a travel-related business not to take Amex.
I look at it and I think, well, I could book anyway on my own credit card and then just get the reimbursement.
No,
that'd be fine because
I'm not giving my credit card to shady.
I'd get the cash back and I'd use Google Wallet for it, so I'd be safe.
Okay,
so that would have been fine. But then I think a second and I type eDreams into Google. And all the results are, this place fucking fucked me.
How did they fuck you? You bought a ticket and you didn't actually get a ticket.
Bought a ticket, they charged me twice, and then they disappeared and never gave me the ticket. Like crazy, egregious bullshit.
How come the government hasn't arrested whoever's
That's what a lot of people are wondering. This is a recent thing. So then I go back.
Why don't we set up something shady like that and see how long it goes before we get busted?
Yeah. So then I go back into Kayak, and basically every result for like the first 3 pages, if you sort by cheapest, is this eDreams fake site.
Why didn't you contact Kayak and say, hey, you should remove this
I tweeted at them, no response. I emailed them, no response.
What kind of money is Kayak just getting, like the commission payment?
There must be something going on like that. But, I mean, like, they have other similarly shady things there before, like all sites do, but $1,000. Like, these aren't so bad. So I pick a flight, and I'm like, all right, cool. And I go to book it. And then, you know, it always takes you to, like, the actual place you're going to book from there.
Hidden fees?
No. It took me to this place called eDreams that I'd never heard of.
Uh-oh.
So, all right, like, fine. I mean, I've booked on shady-ass, like, things like that before, and it's never hurt.
Why does there even exist? I mean, I understand the purpose of Kayak is to, like, search all the different airlines together, right? To you know, aggregate. But when you click buy, shouldn't it always take you to the official website of the airline?
Nope, because that price is usually through someone else who either bought or has a way to buy or an insurance or something.
Those places should not legally be permitted to exist.
You know how we could fix that?
Imagine if you went down to the grocery store, and there's the grocery store, and they have apples, and there's a guy in front of the grocery store, and you can't go in the grocery store and get an apple.
Oh, he comes out, he's like, oh, you want to buy an apple? I'll be right back. And he comes out with
He goes in the grocery store, he waits in line, he buys the apple, and then he sells the apple to you.
So,
it's like, fuck you,
there's
dude.
an easy way to make that happen. We would just have to have laws and then also trade agreements that said any airline must publish in a standardized format all of their prices at all times for all of their offerings, full stop, fuck you. That would make that middle layer disappear.
How about all businesses that sell products to the public directly as opposed to B2B must publish?
Nope, then I'd be an airline and I wouldn't sell to the public. I'd only sell B2B to one of those shady people in the middle.
How does it benefit you?
I can obfuscate everything internally and still do price discrimination. I mean, there's a
you
lot
can
of
just do
e-shops.
Why don't you just do price discrimination and make it fucking public? Just be like, yes, I'm discriminating prices. What you can do about it?
So I watched a coworker booking flights somewhere else, and they opened this. They searched for the same flight on the same service in Chrome, Firefox, and IE, all in the equivalent of incognito, and got radically different prices. And we tested it. It was based on browser.
If you buy plane tickets, just use user agents to try different OSs. Too.
Yeah. So you know what I figured out? If you're using Internet Explorer and you try to buy plane tickets, they just give you worse prices. I guess they think you're dumb enough to take them.
Okay.
Anyway, so then I get to this payment portal that asks for PayPal or a credit card. Warning sign number 1. Warning sign number 2.
What's wrong with that?
That's weird for booking a flight.
I wouldn't use PayPal to book a flight.
Yeah.
But, I mean, most places online let you choose your payment method.
Yeah, but it's still... So I pick credit card, and then Amex is not an option?
Amex is usually not an option.
Not trying to book a flight to and from London, like, the week after next. And, of course, now it's too late, so I'm dropping, like, $3,000 for this trip.
It's not your $3,000.
No, it's not.
So
but
who gives a fuck?
Well, I have an interest in the company such that a percentage of that $3,000 is actually my $3,000.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, so even if you did it well in months in advance, it would have been what, $2,000?
No, like $800 or $900. Like flights to London are not expensive if you book them in advance.
Well, if you're gonna spend $3,000, may as well just spend $6,000 and go first class.
First class is like 11,000. Business class I could get for about 4 or 5.
Just go for it. Full 11,000.
Nah.
Who gives a shit? You don't have to pay, and you get to sit.
No, they would know. So a coworker at one point did book just business class without asking anyone, and it was like $8,000. And there was some drama because of that, because no one's ever done that before.
Oh.
I mean, I book business class when I get it like cheaper than economy because of that Kuwait Air thing. But anyway, the problem I ran into is I use Kayak usually because they're actually like, they're not like all those sites are not great, but of all those sites, that one's actually been pretty okay. Like it's worked out for me.
I mean, all the sites work, the price lines, the kayaks, the whatevers, but they all suck also.
Yeah, for various reasons. But something happened this time. They must have changed something because I searched and I was like, oh, it's like... It's Monday, June 1st, 2015. My name is Rim.
My name is Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, we're talking about how to figure out how to trust the software that you download. Let's do this. So far, I'm on a streak of 1 for having no biking anecdotes at the beginning of the show. I'm going to keep this up.
Except, does that meta count as an infringement?
No, but meta never counts.
Oh.
Besides, what I specifically said, I think, was I won't talk about fixie guys. Anyway, the only reason for can't talk. Can't say anything. No bikes.
I went to work today for the first time in a while. I didn't do any work, and there was so much Netrunner action today, news-wise, that took up most of my time. Also, went shopping during lunch and whatnot.
No. I've actually...
buy Netrunner car.
I spent most of today at work sitting in a meeting that was useless, and then... we have a trip to London coming up, and like no one booked it because every time I said, hey guys, let's book this trip. No, let's wait. So finally, like today, book it. So I've spent the day trying.